Here we go. If any time the audio breaks up on you, just, I don't know how, but try next time it does kick back in, let me know. Sometimes we seem to be going swimmingly and then all of a sudden we have audio issues. But anyway, let's kick off. Okay, to start with, what is audit flow? Well, audit flow, we started or created that almost 6 years ago, April 2010. I suppose in response to the limited availability of audit software out there. There was the paper-based versions created by various accounting bodies for SME audits, but there was probably even less available there for SMSF audits, and hence the genesis for audit flow. It was designed to be compliant. Well, we obviously need to be compliant, but it's also designed to make your audits more efficient. Now, if you have a look at the volume of auditing standards and the requirements auditors are needing to follow, it's almost seems they almost seem to contrast with each other. An easy audit, because of the number of auditing standards, it could appear that that's not possible. So we have to create the, I suppose I call it the Rolls Royce that you can turn to your Commodore or your Ford to suit your needs, and that is the ability to tailor the audit software to suit each individual audit, and so you don't have such an onerous document for simple funds, if that makes sense. In those days, now everyone seems to be in the cloud, but in those days we were one of the early software providers to make their software cloud-based, meaning that any staff member could work on any particular audit simultaneously, provided they have an internet connection. Gone are the days when you need to download a disk into your machine or onto the server. Being cloud-based, we think it provides a lot easier access to the auditors from anywhere, whether they're in the office, home, or at the airport. It doesn't really matter. It's compatible with all versions of all internet, I suppose web browsers, I should say, Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, etc. But if you're using Windows Internet Explorer, you really need to try and ensure you've got the most up-to-date version, just to avoid any bugs or any issues that you may face. What I'll really start to talk about now, you should see on your screen the audit flow dashboard, which will be the main page, the dashboard or the home page you find yourself referring back to on a regular basis. Now, to start with this page and what this page tells us and the information this page contains, if we look at the green ribbon at the top, you'll see in the top left-hand corner the audit flow demonstration. That's our firm name for the purpose of this demonstration, so that would be your firm name. Whenever we want to come back to the home page or the dash page, you do so by simply clicking on the firm name. If we scroll over to the right of the dashboard, you'll see we've got the staff member's name when they log in. Their profile will appear in the top right-hand corner. And if we click on the drop-down arrow, you'll see the title and the position of the staff member and the ability to edit your profile, which we probably recommend you do when you're first set up within the software. If we click on Edit Profile, you'll come to this page. Now, when you're first set up in Audit Flow, you'll be given an automatically generated password. So the first thing we'd probably suggest you consider is going to this page, the settings, again, back to the top right-hand corner, the Edit the Profile, and click on the Securities tab, and simply just change or put in your computer-generated password and change your password to something that would be more easily remembered. If we go back to our profile, just check that the details, your details, are correct on the profile. Really, there's not a lot to do under this settings or this profile tab. These notification and integration tabs, there's really not a lot to do on there. It's just for information purposes. You probably won't find yourself visiting those two pages frequently. So it's really this profile tab and the security tab. The landing page is just your home page. Now, I don't think I've come across any users that don't leave the dashboard as their home page. So unless you want to, I'll keep moving on from there. If you go to the firm settings, so the little spanner in the top right corner of the page and the drop down arrow next to that, what you'll see is your level of subscription, how many files you've used out of your total number of files available. And then if we click on the actual settings option, we'll be taken to this page that contains a number of drop down menus. I'll quickly show you these, but I'll only go into detail on a couple of those. So the subscriptions, as the name suggests, gives you a look at the current subscription your firm has. Primary contact details, just check all this information's correct. This is your firm information. The engagement partner details, regional settings. The firm details, the next one, just I suppose make sure this information's correct, because you'll see information such as the professional body number, the SMSF auditor number, the professional body, etc. populates through to a number of different standard template documents and a number of other fields within the software. For instance, the auditor's report, the template auditor's report captures this information. And so if you're using those template letters, it's probably more important to check that this information is correct. If we go to the firm location drop-down, again, this information flows through to a number of template letters and other reports and fields, so make sure this information is correct also. Let me just minimize those. Finally, we go to the final two drop-down options, the tick marks. When we get to the lead schedules shortly, you'll see when we're in the lead schedules, one way of documenting that we've performed particular procedures, such as vouching the closing balance and the ownership of the shares to supporting documentation, you'll see when we get to it, and I'll come back to that at that time, tick marks. And those tick marks are found on this page. This is the library of tick marks. So when we're testing listed shares or property or whatever asset that may be, and we provide a tick mark to say that we've checked the valuation against market value, we've got this tick mark here, and it will make more sense when we get to it. When we're testing a cash account and we're checking that the bank account was not overdrawn, for instance, we've got these tick marks. What you'll notice, Peter, and anyone else who's familiar with the product, that these tick marks may not appear. You'll find those don't appear in the template because these are just tick marks that I've added over the months and months of delivering these sessions. They're my own tick marks. You have the ability to create your own tick marks just by simply filling out this own tick mark, put your own tick mark in there, and at the bottom right, I'm going to sneeze, so excuse me a sec. Excuse me. And by clicking on the add tick mark, before I forget, before we add our tick mark, just make sure that we tick the relevant box to apply that tick mark to. For instance, an SMSF audit, we need to tick that box if that tick mark's to apply to that template, or the SME or the non-SMSF audit template, we need to tick that box. Otherwise, we won't see that tick mark in our lead schedules. Let me just minimize that. And then finally, the assertions, like the tick marks, the assertions, these are taken straight out of the auditing standards. So we do have the ability to edit tick marks, create our own, modify these. But as these are taken straight from the auditing standards, I've never personally seen the need to do to modify or edit the tick marks. But you have the ability to do so should you wish, by following or simply following the same procedure as I showed you with the assertion, the tick marks. I've glossed over that because there's not a lot of, apart from checking this information is correct, I find myself not visiting this page too frequently. Have you got any questions with regard to your own experience in this area or anything I've just shown you? Anyone?
Look, to be honest, we've just gone with the tick marks that existed, so good to know we can change it, but we're probably more along the lines of following what's there as opposed to creating anything new.
Depends on what tick marks you are currently using. I've added my own in my own version as well. What I mean, for instance, if I go back to the tick marks, by using the tick marks, I find I can add or increase the efficiency quite a bit. I'll show you just one possible way of using tick marks to increase the efficiency as we proceed. But these ones here, that's a new one that I've created for my own usage. These ones, these two, that one, and there are 4 or 5 tick marks I've created that are not part of the template, but I find they save me a fair bit of time when I'm completing the audit, and I'll show you what I mean by that as we go. You'll see finally, as it comes to this green ribbon in the top right hand corner, you'll see the little question mark. If I click on that, you'll see we've got an online help centre drop down, as well as an email and phone number for support, which will take you to our Southport, Gold Coast based location. Firstly, on the online help centre, if we click on that, you'll see a list of online help topics. I won't click into any of them, but you can also do a search for help up in the top right corner by topic and use the search function for when you get stuck and you're looking for a particular, I suppose, online help. Over on the left, we've got a number of topics. You can search by topic. We've got in the menu towards the top a series of videos, online help videos. I won't go into detail on any particular video. And then we've got also frequently asked questions section. Also for when you, I suppose, get stuck. And coming back to that, so I suppose the first step or the first port of call would be to go to the Online Help Centre, and if you still have trouble after or can't find anything to help from that section, then you've got the email and the phone number available to you. Next, if I go back to my dashboard or my home page, again, I go back to the home page by clicking on our audit firm name. You'll see on the home page, I've got a number of buttons or menu items appearing toward the top of the page. So the dashboard, if we click on that drop down arrow next to each of these menu items, we've got a number of subtasks that appear or functions that appear under each of those buttons. The My Files, etc. You'll also notice that these buttons are also repeated for us down here. So where are we? Activity feeds. We've got activity feeds here, which just provides a list of data or activity that's occurring on any file I'm allocated to. So provided your name is allocated to a particular audit file, whenever activity occurs within that file, on your activity page, you'll see a list of what's going on. Your files, so My Files, Your Files, you'll see a list down here of all the files you're working on and the completion statistics. Now, 3 have not started. I'm actually in the 2017 year. The reason, if I go to the 2015 year, for instance, you'll see there are a number of files that I have not started. There are a number that we've finished and we've archived, as well as a number of audits that are in progress. Now, if I want to delve deeper into these statistics and those particular files, I simply need to click on the relevant section. So if I click on them, for instance, if I go to any of these funds, you get an idea of the progress of the funds. Now, nothing's happened in these because I've set the fund up and haven't actually done much work on them. But at least if I go back, at least if I want to know where or get an update on the particular files, I can click on that option. As we get to the next session, we'll also talk about the Workflow Manager, which is another way of looking at the progress of or pulling up a status report on all the funds or all the clients that I'm working on. But I will talk about the workflow manager more so in the next session. The review points, so whenever I've been allocated a review point, so if you're the partner or the manager or you're the staff member, so if you're the partner or manager and your staff have created a review point for you, those review points will appear in the right-hand column. If you're a staff member and the partner or manager have responded to your review points, those responses, provided they've been allocated to you, will appear in the right column. And really, that's our dashboard. If we go down to the bottom of that, we've got a list of the recent files you've been working on. Again, this is if I'm logged in as myself, these recent files are those that I have been working on. And then if we do have any key documents that we want or we find are important to be completed, and we want to create a list or a list of those documents, we can add that list or that document to the key completion documentation list here in the bottom right hand corner. But really, that's our dashboard. Do you have any questions? You'll just get the hang of it as you it's for information purposes, really. There's really no work that goes on this page. It's just a snapshot of all the files that I'm allocated to or working on. Do you have any questions with regard to that?
No, I think we're okay for now.
Okay. So first thing to do, next thing I should say, would be when you start using this is to add staff to a particular engagement. Or I suppose add staff to your profile first before I go adding any staff to an engagement. In adding a staff or in adding a staff member to my organisation, I can create a staff member by clicking on the dashboard drop-down arrow, staff list, and you'll see the list of staff. Before I go further, I want to show you one thing before I start creating a new staff member, and that is the roles and permissions. So if I click on the roles and permissions drop down, you'll see that each staff member or each particular position within a firm, we've just created some standard position descriptions within any firm. You'll see that each particular position is given or allocated by default permissions that they're able to perform. Now, if I click on any of these drop-down lists or these drop-down arrows, you'll see a number of functions that a particular auditor from time to time will perform. Edit engagement team, mark work papers as complete, edit the trial balance, etc. And you'll see that under the column heading, you've got a box with a tick in it or a box which is blank. Now, as you've probably put two and two together and realise that if there's no tick within a particular box, you're not permitted, or the senior auditor in this situation is not permitted to edit the engagement team. If at any time you want to change those default permissions, you need to go back up to the top left corner, edit, click on that. That will make or enable you to edit this page. So if I want to allow the senior auditor to edit the engagement team, simply tick that box. If I don't want the senior auditor to be able to mark the work papers as complete, untick that box, etc. And when you've finished making all of those changes, simply go back to the top left corner and click back onto the View tab. And now, so that's just the roles and permissions default page. When we actually go to create a new staff member, so go back to the staff list and the list of our staff. When we come time to creating a new staff member, we do so by clicking on the blue button towards the top right of the page. Select from the drop-down arrow the particular position within the firm. Before you go creating that staff member, just in case you're not aware of what roles are given to that particular staff member, over on the right-hand side of that page, you'll see that same table we were looking at earlier. Now, excuse me, if I click on any of those drop down arrows, you'll see those permissions that were shown, or I showed to you just earlier, not long ago. You'll see here that there is no tick in each of these boxes, hence this graduate won't be able to perform those functions. Enter the staff name, enter their email address, confirm their email address, and they'll be given this password which has been automatically generated. Provided you've got these two boxes ticked, the staff member will receive that email with their password and login details. I won't go creating a new staff member, but that's how, or the process you would follow. Also, if at any stage your staff are firstly promoted, probably want to go and change their role within the staff list, because if that graduate was promoted to manager based on the functions or the permissions given to that graduate, they would not be able to perform a lot of the functions that their new role within the firm would warrant or be required to perform. So you would just need to go and update that role, or that position rather, within your firm. Likewise, if any of your staff member leave the firm, you might want to go and either suspend or delete that staff member. For instance, if Mary left the firm, if I have not suspended her or deleted her, whilst she's still got access, she can still access your clients, provided she's still got the login details and password. And to ensure that doesn't happen, you would need to suspend or delete her on this page. And really, that's the staff and creating the staff list, and also the roles and permissions within the firm. Do you have any questions with regard to any of that? Okay.
No.
Excellent. Next thing that I'll look at is uploading the client list. So I see your administrators use a variety of different software, BGL, Class, and Supermate. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got I've got a number of other ones that they use as well, but at the moment, Audit Flow just deals with those ones.
Yeah.
We're not using it for my old files and things like that.
No. All right. So I mean, the quickest way to upload a client, as opposed to a client file, but a client. If I go back to the home page, the dash, and if I click on My Files, the drop-down arrow, and the clients. Before I do that, I was going to show you this and then show you how to add an administrator, but I'll add the administrator first. Probably that comes first. On the My Files drop-down arrow, you'll find the SMSF administrators option, and by clicking on that, you're taken to a list of the accountants or the administrators that you're doing the work for. If you wish to add any more or a new administrator, you would simply do so by clicking on the top right hand corner, the blue New Administrator button. It's hard to come up with a new name. Put in the details. It's important to put this email address, make sure that email address is correct. The reason why I say that is if we, one of the benefits of Audit Flow is it allows us to communicate directly with the accounting firm through email, saving the need or allowing us to keep all correspondence in one spot. I suppose the way it does that is through this email address that I'm putting in here now. Let me. It's too hard to speak and type, so I'll just put this in. Also, I like to personally, whenever I email a client with correspondence, I like to know that they've received that. Unfortunately, at this stage, if I email Peter Smith, I won't know whether he or she, or Peter's an ER, he got that email. And so I like to also include myself. Whoever's email address you put in this box, so you can put more than one email address, will receive a copy of all correspondence. So if I put my own email address there, whenever I communicate with this accountant, I'll be copied in on that same correspondence and then click create. So that's the new accounting firm I added. If I click on the accounting firm, you'll see that's blank because I haven't yet added any client files for that firm. If I go to another accounting firm, you'll see this accounting firm, for instance, there's a number of funds under there. And this is a list of all the funds that I'm working on for this particular accounting firm, along with any outstanding queries, a list of the audits that I've completed, the date the audit report was issued, the type of audit report, and whether a contravention report was logged. You'll see also too the list. I mentioned that, but the work paper index for the administrator queries. I can click on any of that reference at any point in time and be taken to the outstanding query or the query list. That's been archived, this file, hence the reason why this funny blue box appears around the SMSF name. So that's locked down. So that's the new administrators. Now, I'll come back to that one in a minute when we're creating a new client. Next thing to do is to create the new client or upload the client, not the client file, but the client within the software. Now, we can add all of our clients into the software without activating one of our files. It's not until we create that client, the actual audit, that we activate one of our files. So if I click again onto the clients option from the My Files drop-down menu, sorry, I forget, Peter, are you comfortable? I'll go over it anyway, but have you how have you been importing the clients? Have you been doing it manually or through the automatic import function?
We've been doing the automatic import function for Class and for Supermate.
Yep.
We don't have any clients on BGL 360, and we've just commenced. We did a trial on BGL manual input or import. Sorry.
Yep.
It seemed to work, except for one item didn't work so well on that import, and effectively, based on that trial, we've decided that all BGL clients going forward will be done by a manual import, which means that we can probably bring on another 300-400 funds.
All right.
Through the system. So yeah, the area that didn't work well for BGL was the members balances. The members balances came through all right, but it was the descriptions on them. So and normally you'd be told who the member was and what their balance was.
Yep.
That didn't actually flow through. So the dollar value did, but the name and whether it was in accumulation or pension didn't flow through for some reason.
Okay, that's and did you ever get in touch with Audit Flow to look into that, or did you ever get a resolution for that? Do you know?
We haven't. I've only just remembered it as you've asked me the question, so it's just something I've got to put on the to-do list to go and follow up.
Okay, when it's a technical issue, so when it comes to technical issues of that nature, I personally don't have an answer to that because it's more of a technical issue. So I can look in or go back to our tech team and see if they know anything about this and if they have a solution, if you want, and then get back to you. I'm just taking note of the problem. So I'm just taking notes. Sorry, I'll be with you in 2 seconds. Okay, I'll get back to you, or if you, yeah, I'll get back to you on that one, Peter.
Okay.
So when it comes to import, as we've discussed, we can either import clients directly from Class or Supermate by clicking on the Import Clients button, selecting the particular software provider. You've got the login details. It's as simple as putting the details in and clicking connect. The same goes for Supermate. BGL 360 does the same, but BGL Simple Funds does not, and you can either manually import them one by one, or you can give, as you're aware, the guys at Audit Flow a list of all your clients on an Excel sheet, and they can do that for you. But that might be, I'm not sure if that's you seem to be having trouble with that, so we'll look at that for you. When it comes to, I suppose that will save you a little bit of time. If you're going to do it each client manually, it might only take a few minutes, but or you still have the ability to do so by clicking on the new client, blue button, add in a new client, click in create. Okay, and you're taken to this page. These tabs, the information or the fields rather contained within these tabs are pretty self-explanatory. When you import directly using the automated function, this information provided it's within or provided this information here is contained within the client file within class or Supermate, etc., that should flow through automatically to these fields. Much of this information will flow through automatically. Select the version that you want. In this case, we're dealing with a client, an SMSF client, so select that. The fund, I'll go through some of this information. Fund details, defaults. This default tab, do you have your own firm template? Have you created your own firm template, Peter?
Yes, I have.
Yep. So you would just select your firm template from here. Just for the sake of this demonstration, I'll use the industry, the 4.0 template, but in this situation, you'd choose your own firm template. I personally, if you've got a firm with multiple staff members here, when it comes time to assign in the engagement team, I'd probably just put your core staff here as the default. How many registered auditors are in the firm, Peter? Two. So when it comes time to choosing your partner, if you've got, I don't know if I'd put any staff in here as the default, because if staff come and go, you'd find yourself in subsequent periods having to edit this on a continual basis. So I'd personally just add the staff on the engagement level at the time of creating the fund for the year in question. I'll explain that later. Custom fields, there's nothing there yet, and then our final tab, the audit files tab, is blank because we've only just created this accounting firm. And this is probably leads us on to the next step, how to create an audit file, and this is probably, I think, the best place to create the new file. I'll close it down and I'll show you and come back to it in a second, but first I'll just show you the other way and then come back to this tab shortly. The next way to create a new file would simply be on the drop-down arrow to click on the new file option. Find the fund or or we don't have a fund in question here because it's a brand new accounting firm. So back to there, where are we? My files, I want to create a new file. If I, for instance, if I go and find that was the new SMSF, it's not there because I haven't yet created one. So I will need to go and find I need to create it in a different way from the new audit engagement file. So again, new file, I'm taken to this page. I would select from the drop-down arrow the particular template. For the purpose of this demonstration, it's the industry template. In your firm situation, it would be your firm template. Type in the new fund name. What did I? New client SMSF. Choose the year, the relevant period, ignore that. No, the reason why that's there, import prior year forms, is because I haven't yet chosen the template. That relates to the non-SMSF version. Do I choose the SMSF version? Allocate the accounting firm, new firm accountants, and click create new audit file. I'll still have a bit more. Oh, that's one way. I'll go back to the initial way, or the original way I said, and that is to go to your accounting firm, so the clients. So go to the My Files clients, choose your client, new client SMSF, audit files, and create a new audit file from this option. Because when I do it that way, the template that you chose as a default template automatically appears here. The name of the firm, this information in these fields is already captured based on the input or the responses we selected when creating the firm to start with. So we click on the new file. Okay, new client. So what we've got now is we've created our file, and what you see on screen now is our template, or our generic audit flow template. At the moment, no information has been populated into the file. There'll be no lead schedules, and there'll only be a very brief audit program in this template. We need to go and create the file, and that's what I'll show you how to do now. The first step or I suppose the first step, what have you done, Peter, when you've created your firm template? One of the things I'll always try to do in the rest of this session and next session is to demonstrate how to make the audits more efficient. Have you, I suppose, when you created your own firm template, what were some of the amendments that you've made to date, Peter?
To be honest, kind of more deletions than anything. And I don't know that I might have changed the wording around to make the language a bit simpler. But look, at the end of the day, if I felt that there were steps in there that were more or less being duplicated, like you might have had 3 or 4 steps, but it could have been summarised in one.
Yep.
I probably tried to bring them together like that. You know, I guess we've taken the view on certain steps, you know, for example, investment confirmations, where more running along the lines of getting broker statements and things like that. So I would have dropped things like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other key thing is I've actually generally gone through and pre-populated a response to each step.
Yep. And that's what.
So that's probably the biggest thing that I think where we saw the efficiency is that, look, it's an audit program. We know what we're doing here. We're rolling it out at 2,500 of them. So we've got the steps. They're pre-populated. Yeah, we have to do a quick check through the process. Someone does that when they go and tick it off. But that's where we're generally getting where I see the benefit. But I'm more than open to ideas about where we can get it elsewhere as well.
Yeah, well, that's a line. I mean, you've described a large chunk of the streamlining process there. I've still got a few more that I might be able to show you, that I'll show you, that might save you some time. But if I just look at each of those methods that you just mentioned, and I'll show you the others also. For those not familiar with what Peter was talking about, for instance, under this engagement or example letters and reports, you'll see a lot of confirmation letters, template letters. A lot of auditors, some do, some don't, or obtain bank confirmation. So irrespective of whether you do, the same process applies for all other work papers. If you don't want to, or if you're not a believer of obtaining or performing any particular function, you can delete it. Now, this folder, you'll see A, B, C, etc. folders. To delete any particular folder, we can delete the whole folder if we want. So on the right-hand column, or towards the right of this folder, you'll see the delete button. By clicking on that, we've gone and deleted the whole folder. If I've realised, oops, I should not have done that, I can always reinstate or restore that folder at any time. Even after I've rolled forward this year's to the next year's file, I still have the ability to restore any folder. Now, to do that, I would go to the top right-hand corner, Options, Show Deleted Work Papers, click or check that box, and you'll see my deleted folder appears, and then I would simply click Restore, and that will be restored, as the name says. I don't want that. I can also delete certain procedures or work papers within an actual folder. So for instance, I might want to delete just one of these work papers in this folder. I can do it by following the same process, except instead of a little red delete button, if I hover over the cog, the drop-down arrow, we've got the delete function there. Just a bit of a pointer. You might find sometimes when you go to delete a particular work paper, see how the restore option is grayed out, not allowing us to do that. You'll often find also the delete is grayed out. Now, if that's the case, and it will happen quite frequently, the reason behind that is it's not evident in this work paper because I haven't done any work yet. But sometimes when you've ticked a box, if you see your name or an audit team member's name where I'm hovering this mouse with a box like that with a tick in it, that's the reason why this delete function is not active and you can't click on that. So you'd simply go find your name, hover over the box here until you see the tick and untick that box, and then this delete function will be made active. So I've just deleted one of the 3 work papers as opposed to deleting the whole folder. And again, if I want to restore that work paper, up again to the top, Options, Show Deleted Work Papers, and Restore. And we're set to go. If I don't want this continually there, I can delete it permanently if I want. Options, permanently remove deleted work papers. Take a few seconds. Now, if when I roll forward, let's say we change the firm policy going forward, and next year we wish to obtain bank confirmations, or next year we wish to implement any of those procedures we permanently deleted, when we roll forward the file, and I'll show you this again next webinar, when we roll forward that file, you will receive a message, or a message will appear saying something along the lines of, "We noticed you deleted a work paper last year. Would you like to restore that work paper at the point of rolling forward? Yes or no?" So even though we've deleted that permanently for the 2015 year, for subsequent years, we have the ability to add that back. We can also add it back by copying it from a different work paper, or a different file rather. Sorry, copy work papers from other files. I'll show you that option also later. So I suppose that's one of the first steps towards editing a particular audit file. Next thing I would do is to import the financial information. Now, to import financial information, we would go to the working trial balance, working trial balance, import the trial balance. We'll choose class. So if the trial balance is coming from class, that's a class Supermate Simple Fund 360 automatically populates. So I'll come back to that. So working trial balance, import trial balance, choose the software it's coming from, put in your login details and connect. This is just nothing to do here. The only thing you'll need to do here is make sure that the fund name is correct. We don't actually have the new client, we don't have the new client super fund sitting within class, so we'll just assume it's the Peter super fund. I know there's financial information in there. Choose your fund and import from this fund. And it's the import function, it's as simple as that. Just give it a second and we'll see the trial balance. So next page, this is just the lead schedule page. There's nothing to do here. It's just a list of lead schedules. showing you where that information has gone to. Nothing to do at all here. And begin auditing. When we click begin auditing, we're taken to the workflow diagram. I'll come back to that later. Firstly, that workflow diagram quickly is just a step-by-step guide, useful for those new to the software to guide them through the completion of the audit. Now, we often get the question from those new to the software, where do I start? And this is the page we direct them to. I'll come back to this later. I personally now, once I've become more familiar with the software, I simply start at the work paper index. And when I click on the work paper index, you'll see now we have a number of additional folders. So the income folder, the expenses folder, the assets, liabilities, etc. folders have been created when I imported that financial information. And if I click on any of these folders, the assets folder, for instance, you'll see those lead schedules that we were looking at only 30 seconds ago. And if I click on any of these lead schedules, for instance, shares in listed companies, you'll see a list of assets within this class. So come back to the work paper index. Any questions with regard to the import function that I just showed you?
No, that's fine. Peter's just left the room at the moment, but that seems to be relatively straightforward.
Okay, excellent. Now, you're currently doing everything paperless, or is that correct, Peter?
Peter's just out, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you said that, sorry.
No, as far as evidencing what's in these lead schedules, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yep, excellent. All right, so you're an external audit firm, are you? So all your audits are, or most of your audits are for firms external to yourselves?
That's correct.
Yep. What's the process for obtaining all the supporting documentation from the accounting firms?
There's a variety of methods. Some email, some Dropbox, others we log into their own client portals.
Yeah.
So most documents come in a PDF format though.
So the accountant emails you in a PDF, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, you save that PDF onto your firm's server, or you store it somewhere, yes, and then you upload it onto this or into this client file. That's probably one of the first ways, if you've got a willing accounting firm, that you could save a bit of time. And I'll get to it in a second, but from your point of view, the auditor's point of view, it will save you a fair bit of time. From the accountant's perspective, it takes them no longer to do. That's exactly the same time required on their behalf. What I would think would be useful is once you've created this, so this is your SMSF, the new client SMSF, you would create the client file. Sorry, let me go back to the client file. This work paper, or this folder rather, administrator queries. You click on the administrator queries, and this is the page that we communicate directly with the accountant or the administrator. So the first way of improving efficiency would be to, on this work paper A1, notify the accountant or the administrator that the file has been set up and ask them to upload all supporting documentation into this page, as opposed to emailing it to you. If they've got to go and find it somewhere and attach it to an email, it's probably even quicker doing it this way than emailing it. Now, the only thing they need to do is remember their password, and provided they remember their password, they simply log in. So it would work something along the lines of this. So you'd communicate that message to the accountant.
Yep.
What will happen is, and then you go to the bottom. Sorry?
that gets emailed to them. Is that what's happening
Correct,
there?
yeah. So we go down to the bottom of that page and click this green Notify Administrator button.
Mm-hmm.
So that accountant will receive an email. It will receive an email with those instructions. They simply log in. They get a page that looks very similar to this one. So they'll log in. Imagine this over here on the right of your screen is their server. So imagine that's their server, not yours. So they then, whichever documentation they normally upload into an email, they simply just drag, like you can drag and drop into the software, they can drag and drop as well. So they'll log into their page that looks very similar to this page. I'll just click on it, drag and drop. Now that could be one document, it could be 30 documents, but they'll drag and drop, and they can do 30 at a time. So they don't need to upload 30 one by one. They can just highlight them all and do a bulk import. And so anyway, they'll upload that documentation and they'll have a little green button on their page that says Notify Auditor. So they click that and you'll receive an email to say Joe Bloggs, the accountant, has uploaded the requested information. You will then log into this page, A1, and see the document there. Before I forget, and that's when, see this blue button, we can send that documentation directly to the relevant folder we want to store that. Now, I'd never actually created that folder, so let me just go back to the work paper index for a second. I personally like to, and a lot of auditors like to create a brand new folder just to house all the supporting documentation, keep it all in one spot. So if that's the way you want to do, or the pathway you want to follow, you would just click on Work Paper Index, New Folder. I just call it SD. And create. And there's our folder down there. So now we can, and that's where I stored all supporting documentation. So now we come back to, remember we've received this email from the accountant and they've given us the information requested, 1 page or 30 different documents, doesn't matter. If I click on this blue button, Send to Work Paper Index over towards the right, I choose my folder that I want to send it to, send. Now, if I go, now we can navigate in a number of ways, but over on the left-hand column, if I click on that supporting documentation folder, there it is there. Let me just open it up this way. That's the document the accountant gave me that I sent directly to the supporting documents folder. So it saves me having to open an email, copy and paste onto my server, then drag and drop. So it saves the accountant, the auditor, quite a decent amount of time. And remember, it probably saves the accountant because they can drag and drop straight into this software as opposed to having to open up an email and insert into the email as an attachment. Any questions with that one?
So we'd obviously have to give them a form of access to be able to do that.
Yeah, yes, correct. What will happen, you don't have to do it. I mean, you don't have to do it, but yes, they have to be given access. The system does it for them. So what will happen is when you click that button, Notify Administrator, when you click that, they'll receive the email. Now, if it's the first time they've ever used Audit Flow, just like if you're a new staff member, when you receive that email, it will say, there's your password, log on. They'll receive the exact same email almost. Dear accountant, you've been, your auditor has a query for you or has requested information. Use this password and this login detail to log into Audit Flow, where you'll have access to respond to those queries, that sort of thing. This is the only page they'll see. They won't see all of these other work papers. It's only this page that they'll see, a page that looks similar to this that they'll see. Okay, so now we have all of our documentation up here. Now the second way, let's assume that you don't do it that way. the next way is to upload that information yourself. So when you receive an email from the accountant with 10 different PDF documents attached to that email, this is the way I think it sounds like you're already doing it. So you'll save them. Now imagine this is your server, excuse me, and all of these documents have been copied from that email and pasted or saved into your server. So the drag and drop function, for those that are not familiar with it, what I'll do right now is I'll drag and drop the trust deed, the engagement letter, the ethical letter into our permanent files section. So there's the ethical letter, there's the engagement letter, trust deed. I can either do it one by one, or I can simply highlight them all and drag from my server into the software. And there you'll see the supporting documentation sitting in the client file. With storing current year information, where are you currently storing? So if you've got bank statements or share statements or broker statements, how do you currently store all of that documentation?
So essentially via the, I'm guessing, the lead schedules, we'd go under, let's say we'd go under assets, and then there'll be bank somewhere in there.
F2, bank, yep.
Further down, cash at bank. And we would then drag and drop based on the number of accounts into each area, and then that generally would start with F26 and F27 onwards until we've kind of satisfied ourselves that we've got all the documents that we need. So essentially directly under the lead schedule.
Yeah. Do you have a standard work paper reference system? So is it, by the sounds that it sounds like it's standard that a bank will be F26. I do it F2 1.1. I like to keep the banks at F2 1. So if I had a bank statement, I'd do F2 1.1, but that's irrelevant. What I'm getting at is if we've got our standard work paper referencing system, here's something that I've only just discovered. Now, when we create our own firm template, let's just go for a second to our program. I'll go to our program for a second. To go to the program, and I'll come back to this later, but to go to the program, at the moment I don't have Cash at Bank program. I've got to create that. I'll just quickly do that right now. And I'll do it with the...
Why don't you go through this, because I wouldn't mind the guys being able to know this part of it as well.
Oh yeah, I will do it. I was going to do it later. What I'll show you while we're on the lead schedules. I definitely will be doing this, absolutely. So what I'm getting at is this. Let me go back to the lead schedule for assets. When I'm creating my firm template, I will go to this lead schedule. We'll go to the bank. When I put in no, I have to do it from the program. I'll do it. But when I mean, there's one benefit. I mean, some people will, such as yourselves, they'll import that document into the lead schedule. So back here. Bank. So if this is our bank document, bank statement. So there, where are we? So there's the bank statement. So I'm just dumping all of my bank statements into the lead schedule directly below Cash at Bank. When I do that, you'll see it should automatically give it a reference of F26. I mean, that much of a muchness. I prefer it's just me. It doesn't really matter. I give it a reference such as that, so it sits immediately under that. But sometimes you'll find, for instance, I'll be on a different work paper. I might be, so for instance, it's sitting here behind the Cash at Bank, and it will confirm the closing balance, it will confirm ownership, etc. But I might also need to refer to that bank statement when I'm doing income for interest. So I might need to refer to that when I'm working on C interest, oh, this doesn't have interest, but if I got interest income, that would also potentially be my supporting evidence for interest income as well. Agree?
Yeah.
Hence, that's the reason why I prefer to, not, this isn't, I'm no more correct or incorrect than anyone else, but that way, if I have that bank statement sitting there, SD1, it's just that one single reference that everyone's familiar with.
Ashley, you've got me convinced. I just didn't know how to do it, so
Yeah.
I've just told the guys that's how we're going to do it from now on.
Yeah. Now it gets even better than that. If I've got a standard set of numbering, work paper referencing system, it gets even better than that. So let's say I will go to that program now. Let's say when I've got my firm template and I'm on the program, let me just create my program for Cash at Bank, and I'll go and explain how to do this again in more detail later. I just want to get the program for Cash at Bank up. So now when I'm auditing, I'm going to, in my firm template, so even though I've got my firm template, sometimes I still have to put this referencing in. So if I've obtained all my referencing, obtain bank statements. My bank statements are at SD2 in this instance. See how I put in SD2, it automatically pops up my reference? But I can't do that in my, if that SD2 was not already there, that would not have popped up. So let me call it SD, here we go, let's just say hypothetically I've got a bank confirmation and it's sitting at SD3. See how no sort of automatic prompt appears? That's because there's no SD3 in the folder. So let me just put that there. There's no SD3 there, so that's not going to automatically, there's no hyperlink there. But now, so I can go and create my firm template. I can put in my references into the firm template module, thereby saving me the need to continually put in a reference there. And look what happens now if I do put an SD3 in there. Let's say that was, let's just hypothetically say that was my bank confirmation there. And now SD3 appears there. If we go back to where we just were, the program, see the SD3, it's now hyper. It's become active, that link. So until I learned how to do that, I was having to, every time there was supporting documentation dragged and dropped into the folder, I was having to put these references in there. I don't have to do that now if I've got, I mean, that's only going to work if that SD3 is always the bank confirmation, and if SD1 is always the bank statements, if you've got a common or a uniform way of referencing things. Any thoughts or comments on that?
No, that's definitely an improvement that we can take forward. So
that's good.
Happy with that.
Yep. The other thing is, if we go back to our lead schedules, when come back to the program. When you're auditing, say, Cash at Bank, and you've got a procedure that asks you to do something along the lines of, this one, obtain all bank statements for the current financial year and agree to closing balance. How would you address this procedure here? Would you put a sorry?
No, look, as I said, we can definitely improve by putting the reference. The statement that would be in the template would be agreed to bank statement, and we make sure that we do it by clicking and dragging and dropping the reference across in the lead schedule. So that's kind of, and then ticking it to say that we've verified it.
Yeah.
So I can certainly see that we can put the reference in there now and still say agree to bank statement.
So you would put something along the lines of this. Would you type in your firm template something like that?
That's more, yeah, something along those lines. Yep.
You could do that. That's probably what I'd probably do both. But try this. Have a look at this option. So when we're on I put everything into the lead schedule, and all referencing is to the lead schedule. So if I've got cash at bank, and if the reference for that bank account is SD2, let's, for argument's sake, that's the reference to that bank statement. And at the time of uploading, so when I'm reviewing that PDF document or those bank statements, at the time of reviewing them, I'm looking for ownership. So at the time of uploading that document, I'm looking for ownership. So I'll tick this assertion. I'm looking at the opening and the closing balance and agreeing that to the financials. So that I'm looking at the opening and closing balance. I'm looking, it takes 10 seconds to do in a small fund. I'm looking to see the bank account was not overdrawn. So those procedures take no more than 30 seconds almost to do. So I'm ticking the assertions or the tick marks as we go. Now, testing a sample of withdrawals to see they're for permitted purposes might take a little bit longer than that, but each of those 5 procedures takes no more than a minute to do. And so I do those procedures at the time of uploading the documentation. So now when it comes time to filling out that program, when it comes time to filling out that program, all of these references are to that same lead schedule. So I actually reference them to, I don't reference them to that. I reference them to the lead schedule. That's the lead schedule is where I performed these procedures. Now F21 is not the bank statement. F21 is the lead schedule. At F21 is where I've got my reference to the bank statements. Any thoughts on that?
So you're essentially saying that you just put in the hyperlink and you don't need to make the comment.
No, but okay, because I've made the comment. I do make the comment because I've got a firm template, and in that firm template, I've also done this.
Yeah, yeah.
But even if I didn't do that, obtain bank statements and agree to the closing balances. If I go and look at F2, agreed to the closing, but you can see that I've already done it there. On the program, It doesn't say I've done it. It says go and look at F21, and when I go to F21, I can see that I've done it.
Yeah.
But I do, I do still put in that comment wherever it was here. I do still put that comment in, but I mean, you could argue that I may not need to. If I had to do this on a file by file basis because I didn't have the firm template, well then I wouldn't be doing that on every job because I've done it in the lead schedule. Yes. I do it because I have the ability to create my own firm template with that already in it. So that's the reference, and I always list it or reference it to the lead schedule. Now, if we look at the lead schedule for listed shares, for argument's sake, here's another way. How many documents do you find yourself, the most extreme, these are the most extremes. I've received a PDF that can, in one single document that contains all the information, financial. So the accountant has a hard copy. They put their hard copy file through the scanner and they give me an email with one document. It might be 200 pages long, but it's one PDF. That's the most, the smallest number of files I've ever received, right through to an accountant once sent me an email with a link to 135 different documents. So I've had the extremes. I prefer the one single document. I suggest to the accountants they go and put through the hard copy through the scanner and upload that single PDF that's 100 to 300 pages long into A1. And that's my reference. So if I've tested, my sample selection has told me to test ANZ, Coles, Commonwealth and JB Hi-Fi. My support for those 4 shares is that one 200-page document, and it's SD1. See how SD1, when I put it in there, it has appeared next to each of those 4 documents. It's because they're ticked. Now, SD1 will be the work paper reference for every lead schedule, which saves time. See, one of the last webinars I gave, the guy, the auditor, used to sit, he reckons, for an hour and a half, because the accountant would just give him because they're a Chinese walls firm, the accountant would give him the hard copy folder. You'd have to go and search through it and take out what he wanted, scan it, upload it. And he had, 20, maybe 20 different documents. Now, the benefit of this, we've got one single document to reference to. The downside of that is if you're the partner trying to work out, well, where's that supporting document for ANZ within this 200-page document? That's a problem that could cause the reviewer to take a bit of time in performing their job. Hence the reason the auditor, when they're uploading that document, if that, let's say it's a link market service document for ANZ Bank, in the comments box, oops, sorry, where are we? In the commentary box, I'll get rid of that. Let's do it one by one. I want to delete these. Let me quickly delete these. So there's our single document. ANZ is on page 32. Just helps the reviewer go straight to the document. So rather than the reviewer having to scroll through 200 different pages looking for that link market service document, click on there, page 32, okay, open up the document, go straight to page, in the PDF viewer, in the top of that page, you've got that little box with a page number in it. Put in page number 32 and you're taken straight to the ANZ Bank. Same goes for here, that is on page 45, etc. That just helps with the reviewer.
Do you find I can see the benefit in what you're doing there. Do you find that having one document of 200-300 pages is not somewhat difficult to do the audit because you don't have it broken down into more piecemeal, more manageable, or you can go to what you need to straight away if it's in 130 documents?
I understand the thought behind that, but just when you do your audits, do you have say do you audit with 2 screens?
Generally.
Okay, so let's say your left screen has got right in front of you is the left screen, and over on the right screen is that 200-page document. I find personally it's even quicker with the 200-page document. So let's say, I imagine this is our right-hand screen that we've got open now. Let me just open that up. So that's over on our right screen. We've only got 1 page, but if that's 200, just by putting, so remember on the left screen is that comment box that tells me ANZ is on page 32. On the right-hand screen is the 200-page document. To me, it's a matter of just putting in, it won't let me because I've only got 1 page, but 32 there. And I can go to page 32, the ANZ document, quicker than if I had to close this one down, then go and open up F21 to go and look at ANZ document.
Okay.
I find it would be quicker for the reviewer. It might take longer for the auditor, potentially, but for the reviewer, I find it would be much quicker to do it this way.
Okay.
So that, everyone to their own.
Yeah, I think that one we might have to try. I've done it with the larger documents. I just find it a little bit harder to get my head around the larger document than I do the more piecemeal. But that may come down to personal preference. I don't
Yeah.
know.
See, if that was, so I'm trying to think on the spot here. So if that was SD1, that was ANZ, that was SD2, that was Coles, SD3, etc. I mean, I'd still have to open up these documents all the time, which might only take me, depending on how fast I am, it might take me 10 seconds to open up, 10 seconds to close. Yeah, each to their own, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. It's like when I'm looking through one of those massive annual reports that's 250 pages long. I just like to use that PDF search little menu item and just put in when I know the page number, just put in that page number. But anyway, once
Yeah.
I've done these and I'm comfortable with all of the, the assertions are correct, I then go and tick all of these boxes that I've tested and then put in my assertions. The reason why I went and deleted all my assertions because I had ticked these boxes and then I put in my comment, and because these other boxes were ticked, that same comment applied to all of those ones I had ticked. Now this is on page 32, that's 45, that's 57, so that doesn't work that way. But when I'm comfortable with my testing, agrees to market value somewhere in there we go. I put in my assertions, or my tick marks rather, and that's done. So really, so that's the lead schedules. Did you, anything else you thought you wanted to discuss there?
No.
All right, so finally then it's time to get our program ready. So I quickly started to show you that before. I'll go back to it now. So when we create our audit program, apart from the fact we've got assets here because I created them 15 minutes ago, you'll have a blank program. Now what you need to do for the first time you audit or work on an audit file for this client, you need to go to the program and create the program to test the assets, the liabilities, the income and the expenses within the fund. So does it have cash at bank? Yes. Does it have investments? Yes. Listed securities? Yes. Liabilities? No. Reserves? No. Contributions? Yes. If they've got any pensions, you've got to choose the type of pension or the type of benefit, I should say, and close that down. Now, when you do that, you'll see now that the program, if I click on assets, for example, you'll see there's the program for bank or cash at bank. If I scroll down, you'll see the program for the investment strategy. You'll see the program for listed shares and securities, etc. If I scroll over to the top, by the way, on the top of this work paper, you'll see these tabs. They're our programs. You'll see the program for member benefits. You'll see the program for investments, contributions, expenses, benefits paid, etc. These last two programs are simply checklists, completion checklists. When we look at the cash at bank, I was already on it, you'll see, sorry, let me just open this one up again. You'll see a number of procedures in here. Now, it sounds to me, by the look of it already, you've gone and created your own firm template. So I'm guessing if you're not in the habit of, have you edited the program? I know you might have gone and deleted work papers from certain folders, or you might even have deleted entire folders. Have you edited much of the work within the program?
Bits and pieces, but not a whole lot, no.
Yeah. So by the sounds of it, though, you've gone and put default commentary next to a lot of the procedures. Is that correct?
I think against each procedure we've made a comment as to, you know, that it's either done or there's no exceptions or something along those lines as a default.
Yeah. So that's what I'll do, because we've got 5 minutes. What I'll do is, that's all the editing. I'll show you, I'm just giving you an intro into the editing that you have available to you. What I'll do at the start of the next session is we'll go, and I'll do it now because we've got 5 minutes. And then when we come to our next session next week, I'll then talk about completing the risk assessment and the plan. I'll also talk about completing the program and give some tips where possible that might save you time in doing so. We'll also then look at rolling forward to future periods, marking the work, or before, in no particular order, marking the audit file as complete, the partner review and sign off, copying work papers from prior periods, and just file completing procedures. Before we do, as you've mentioned, against some of these procedures, you've provided standard commentary. Now, it might be from not considered or not applicable. Now, you'd probably put commentary along that line if you had a habit of sometimes obtaining bank confirmations or sometimes performing these procedures. If you're never in the habit of performing a particular procedure, whatever that may be, you have the ability to delete on a file by file basis any of these procedures. You have the ability to also add any particular procedure. And finally, you have the ability to modify or edit any particular procedure. So for instance, if I was not in the habit of ever obtaining a bank confirmation, when creating my firm template module, I'd delete that procedure from this work paper. Now, to delete or edit any procedure, in the top left-hand corner of your page, next to the file drop-down, click on the edit mode. Go to the procedure that we want to delete. In the right-hand column, you'll see the red cross. Delete that. Now, if we're not obtaining bank confirmations, this procedure would also be invalid. So delete that. I might want to modify a particular procedure. So this one, I have the ability to modify. And then finally, I want to add my own procedure at the bottom. So if I go to the bottom of the work paper, add a row. Now, once I've made all of my additions or amendments or editing, I need to close this or get out of the edit mode. And I do that again by clicking on the blue arrow to the right of the file menu and close the edit mode. Refresh the page. What you'll see is now at the top of the page, if you don't refresh your page for some reason, that number 1 would have still been number 2. Oh, I deleted that, so maybe, oh no, I didn't. So anyway, there you'll see that the 2 procedures relating to obtaining a bank confirmation are no longer there. You'll see I modified this procedure here, and you'll see that I added another procedure right down the very bottom. I don't know why, but it always seems to. I added that one at the bottom of this work paper. If we ever want to move or reposition, so I want that back at the bottom, or I might want number 7 up here. It doesn't matter. I can move them around. So if I go back to edit mode, and I scroll down to the bottom of that, if I hover next or to the left of the procedure that I wish to reallocate or move around until the 4-point cross appears, click on it, and then I just drag it to where I want it to sit. And then once again, go back up to the left corner, close edit mode. And you can see that procedure, where are we, has moved back down to the bottom. So if you're going to make a habit of that and do that for every file, you'd probably make those changes to your firm template module. If it's just on a one-off basis, I'd probably just put not considered necessary or not applicable. But you have the ability to edit or delete on a file-by-file basis also. So that's still number 2. Refresh the page and it will go back to number 1. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, no. So I want Matt here to go through and review our template.
Yep.
Is there a way that I can print it out for him, just because he finds it easier on paper than on the screen?
Yeah, sure. Now, if you go to the top left-hand corner, File, Export. Now, okay, there's 2 ways to print here. Now, the long way, and I would not suggest you do this, is go to Print, Print View, and Print. But you're going to have to do that for about 150, I'm only exaggerating, I don't know how many different pages there are, but a lot of different work papers. So that's probably not the most efficient way of doing it. The most efficient way would be to File, Connect, Export entire audit file as a zip archive. And that will, it'll take a while, but that will save it as the whole file as a PDF to wherever you wish to store it. And then you would just print that single document off in one hit, as opposed to printing off whatever there are, 60 individual pages or however many there are.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
All good. Now, what I'll do, so that really draws us to a conclusion for today. We've got our file set up ready to go. Next Monday when we log on, I'll show you then how to complete the file in hopefully an efficient manner, and potentially give you some ideas on how that can be achieved.
Okay, great.
All right, well, thanks everyone. What I'll do is, just to make sure I'm clear, I will go back to the tech guys and I'll find out, I've written down your query somewhere. It was to do with when you are importing, BGL doesn't import the names of the members. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I'll look into that right now and hopefully send Peter an email very shortly.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Speak to you next week.
See you next week. Bye.